Okay, the time is 6:02 p.m. and the recording will be started. And the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for September 22nd, 2021 has been started. The first item on the agenda is the public hearing agenda, 275 Lark Street. We have this being led by the lead planning official and the Honorable Richard Concy, council member for the 6th Ward.
Uh, I'd like to respectfully request, on behalf of Corporation Counsel's Office, the complainants, and the respondents, Cafe Hollywood, together, we'd like to jointly request that the Board of Zoning Appeals set the nuisance hearing aside for tonight until the next meeting, as the parties have tentatively reached a settlement agreement, and we will provide the board with an update on the settlement once it's finalized.
Thank you, Martha. I'm amenable to that. Can I get a motion from the board to accept the Corporation Counsel and Cafe Hollywood, the respondents' request to set this aside until a further date while we await confirmation of full settlement by the city and the establishment?
I'm sorry, Richard, were you looking for a motion or a second?
Motion, please.
I'd like to make that motion that we set this aside while the city tentatively, or while the city and the respondent negotiate this.
Again.
Thank you. And we have a second. All those in favor of setting this case aside for the time being, while we await further updates from the complainant and respondent, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No opposed. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, Louise.
The next item on the agenda is 161 Washington Avenue Extension. The applicant is Greg Fischel from Allied Sign Company. He is in attendance. We'll go ahead and allow him to speak, and he can present the case. Greg, I have your PowerPoint set up, so you can just let me know when you want me to advance to the next slide, and you're ready to go whenever you're ready.
Okay, Greg Fischel with Allied Sign Company. We're shooting for a proposed area variance at 161 Washington Ave, Suite 104, for a 100-foot square foot sign. You want to go to the next, the project location. So you'll see there, it's in between the Ninja Lab and Planet Fitness. We did a few drawings and surveys for this sign, and the 32 square feet is just it's just pretty small for this facade. And we looked at larger signs. We looked at signs in the neighborhood, in the plaza there, and we settled on 100 square feet. We used some visibility charts to use our calculations, and we also looked at the construction of other signage in the area, and a lot of them are pans with channel letters or channel letters. Do I go right along with the
Well, you just let me know when you want me to advance to the next slide. I'm not just sure if you wanted me to advance or not, or
Okay, I apologize. We can advance to the area variance review criteria. So it's whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or determined to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. The proposed variance request is consistent with the character of surrounding properties. The location is part of a strip mall with other mall retail elevations to the side and behind the location. The sign is constructed of a non-illuminated aluminum pan with internally illuminated channel letters mounted to the pan. A survey was completed at site and found 3 of the 4 existing signs on the strip to be at the same construction. The proposed size of the sign would be significantly smaller in size than all existing signage in plaza. The average mean of existing signage is 528.745 square feet. This is calculated from the 4 existing signs. The request variance would change the character of the neighborhood by keeping a consistent look of signage and also having the signage look proportionate to the existing building facade. If you go to the next page, we have some photos and measurements of the signage that's existing. Each sign there is a non-illuminated pan with channel letters, except for the at-home sign that is individual channel letters. The next question, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than area variance. In designing the signage for this location, we looked at other signage. Again, at the location, the building facade, construction of signage, distances from entrance to plaza, and some of the traffic views. We did mini scale drawings with signage at different sizes and did on-site tests with paper. According to visibility charts, the 100 square foot sign would be efficient to the customer to have business recognition so that customers or potential customers would know where they're located in the plaza. If you go to the next page, this is a scale drawing, shop drawing to code at 32 square feet. So this would, I mean, the pan would be that size. The logo would be 18.5 inches tall. And the rest of the letting would be 14 inches tall. Again, the only thing on the sign that would illuminate is the logo and the individual letters. If we can go to the next question, whether the request area variance is substantial. We feel that the request is not substantial deviation from the USDO requirement, as the proposed signage is much smaller in scale than existing signage, and it keeps a proportionate look to the building facade. Even though the request is more than 3 times the allowed 32 square feet by code, it would calculate to only 18.9% of the average mean of square footage of existing signage in the plaza. Next question, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. There would be no potential impact on such factors as drainage, traffic circulation, dust, noise, odor, or public services. Proposed signage is constructed of the same material as existing signs with material and illumination. The colors are simple and work well together for signage and are not too bright or neon colors. Next question, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the BZA, but shall not necessarily prelude the granting of the area variance. The existing signage in the plaza was constructed before the change of code to much smaller square footage allowance. For a new business tenant in a new location, there's a major need for recognition. For the signage to be at the new code would leave the tenant with a major disadvantage for having substantially smaller and odd looking sign than other businesses in the location. I know this, I know there was a code change and you guys have to set the tone. So we just feel that the 100 square foot sign would be smaller but fit in to where the existing places are. And we're hoping you take consideration of the variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I was curious, since you brought up the consideration of other ways to meet the variance, if there were any considerations given to locating signage at other places within the Shoppers Plaza. Do you still plan on having a sign at the monument in front? Or are there other methods that were considered as far as wayfinding to help people find this particular business?
I don't think the customer wanted to look into anything like that. They definitely wanted something that was recognizable over their storefront. I don't think they're looking to be on tenant pylons or anything like that. They're obviously not one of the big tenants like a Planet Fitness or anything like that. So who knows even if the landlord would even let them be on certain tenant panels. I know with most businesses that we work with, you know, you have to own so much square footage or have so many employees to be on certain pylon tenants or tenant pylons, I'm sorry.
You're referring to standalone pylons or the pylon in front with the full listing of the plaza?
Yes, the standalone pylon.
Okay.
Do you have any further questions, Martin?
No, not right now.
Okay. Are there any further questions of the board?
Rich, I just have more of a comment. I mean, I think it's, you know, a little, you know, I don't think the answer to the last question, if this was self-created, you know, really, I think it is self-created, you know, so to say that it's not just because, you know, they're opening at a time when other businesses had their signs approved. You know, I think that's a little disingenuous, and, you know, I'm fine. Again, I understand how it is, and that although I think the reasoning that, you know, they'll be at a competitive disadvantage with the neighbors in the plaza, even though, you know, they're not selling the same service, makes it a little hard to go down that path. But I just wanted to, you know, more so say that I think it is self-created, and I'm personally fine with that. I just don't think it's a good answer to say that what they said.
Thanks, Jeff. And you actually anticipated a question or two I was going to ask. So of the applicant, Mr. Fischel, are there any other businesses providing the same product or service that you do in this location?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay. And so even if your sign is significantly smaller, that is, we don't grant the substantial variance you're asking for, since you are essentially the only store offering that product, will anyone have any difficulty finding you?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, when I went there a couple times, I mean, I was looking for where this location was. It's kind of off to the side of the main building structures. I just think having a sign that small would definitely deter, or maybe cause some people to maybe go around twice to find out where it is. You know, if they're not Googling it or GPSing it on their phones.
Okay, and so just to ask that question slightly differently, is it, are you aware whether or not the owners of that shopping center allow competing businesses to site in the same area of the center?
I am not aware of that. I apologize.
Okay. I think Martin asked this question, and forgive me, I don't remember the answer, but it's our understanding that there's a monument sign at the front of the shopping center that is on the main thoroughfare in Washington. Will this store be able to have any space on those monument signs that are out front?
I don't believe so. They never mentioned anything to me on the start of this or anything with them being able to be on there. I don't know if it's full or it's just not in their lease. So that would be something I would have to look into.
Okay. Let me stop for a moment. Are there any other questions from the board?
I guess from the standpoint of the design of the building, and I don't know if Luis, you could call that up, are there particular architectural elements of the building and such it was designed to have a certain size sign Or are there electrical or structural components to the area you are installing the sign that necessitate the need for a larger sign in the context of the construction or design of the building as opposed to a smaller sign? I.e., was the building constructed with this certain anticipation that signs would be constructed in a particular space?
With the sign industry, you can either like the at-home sign, how it's individual letters. So each one of those letters has a LED wire that goes through, and everything gets connected behind that. As long as there's access behind that wall, you're able to do that. If there is no access, most cases, letters like that have to go on a pan, and only one wire is put out through the wall. So that's the reason you may get the Michael sign, the Planet Fitness, because there's no access to behind that sign. So what they do is when they're building, they stub out one power supply for the signage, and that's why you have the pan, because everything is wired up and behind that pan. All your power supplies are there, and the wire comes through and hooks up. If it's like the at-home letters, everything is behind the wall. So I don't think it has anything to do with the construction of the building.
So maybe I missed it because I went off for a second. My connection isn't great. Luis, if you're controlling the slideshow, could you go to the applicant's rendering of what the compliant sign would look like in context with the other signs? I think that was able to show a visual representation. I think that's it. Okay. All right. So I see that I don't know if that's a consideration of the plaza, or that's a consideration of design of where the signs are located in the building. But it does appear that there is at least a horizontal area or line to the building where signs are supposed to be applied from a tenant. Although the other two signs go outside of the kind of imaginary box, not imaginary, but there's an architectural feature, if you want to call it that, for the building that appears as if it's supposed to frame signage, which the other signs don't adhere to. I think using the word architecture for a building like this is a strong word, but thank you. I just wanted to see that in context.
Thanks, Martin. And Mr. Fischel, just to go back to the elements, one of the things that you were supposed to provide for the board was what alternatives the applicant explored. As you know, the board is constrained to grant the smallest possible variance if we are going to go ahead and give a variance. And so could you describe for us a little bit what alternatives you and the applicant went through trying to figure out either to do something without a variance or to get the smallest variance?
I don't think they've looked into other signage, directionals and things like that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if they would be allowed to by the landlord. We just tried different size signs and square footage. In the beginning, they had just the channel letters on there. So we kind of put the blue background behind there to make them maybe pop out a little more from the facade. A lot of times colors like that orange and the light blue will get lost in the brown. But for other types of signage, I don't think they really looked into that or even wanted to do that.
Okay. Let me ask the board again if you have any further questions, and if not, then we'll move on to determining whether there are any members of the public who would like to speak for or against this project.
Rich, I think not really a question, just to get another comment, Greg, I think that they could have, going back to Martin's question about whether there was any opportunity to get on the monument sign, and your point about how it could be difficult to find the business without this big of a sign, I think if they had looked into the alternatives a bit more, then that might have alleviated that concern by seeing if they could get signage out front, since there are two entrances to this. So I think, there are other alternatives considered. So I think that, it would have been best that they had taken a look, but I understand for the most part. So again, just a comment.
Thanks, Jeff. Luis, do we have anyone in the gallery that wishes to speak for or against this project?
I did not see anyone register for comments. We have a couple of attendees. If any attendee is looking to provide comments, please either raise your hand or enter into the chat your wish to request comments, and we can take them. I see none.
Thank you. In that case, are there any wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'm okay with this, and I'd like to make a motion that we grant the variance.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of granting the motion as presented to the board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No one opposed. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Fischel.
Thank you very much for everyone's time.
Luis, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have no other business for tonight's agenda?
That's correct. No other business.
Thank you. In that case, I'd like to call the September 22nd public meeting and public hearing of the City of Albany Board of Zoning Appeals to a close. And as always, thank you all for your service to the city.
Thank you.